I think we are good to go. Okay, so welcome, you guys. I know a lot of us are mamas, and it is 6:30, which means it's dinner time, bath time, bedtime. Hello, hi, Shauna. How are you? Good, Katie. So we're just getting started. So this is perfect timing. Whatever you're doing, you could just go on mute. For those of you who downloaded the app today, welcome. It is my program. It is a combination of mindfulness, HIIT, nutrition, you name it. So I just wanted to dive into a good old college friend of mine. She is a registered dietitian. Her Instagram handle is the Mindful Eating Dietitian. And we're just going to start with some pre-postnatal nutrition questions. Carly, welcome. Carly Beausejour. Did I say that correctly?
Yes,
I know she
that's good.
married me. We did go to high school together, so I wanted to make sure there. She worked in the pre-postnatal space for 2 years, so I just wanted to chat with her about pre-postnatal nutrition. So just diving in, I am now in that finally second trimester. First trimester was extremely different this time around, and I know a lot of women that are in that first trimester. It's nausea. I can only consume carbs. I just want to lay in bed. Any information on foods that can help us combat that nausea so that we can feel somewhat normal?
Yeah. So with nausea, you definitely want to avoid, well, you know your body the best. So if you know something causes you nausea, you want to avoid eating that. But greasy foods can definitely just smelling the food can cause nausea. So you may want to avoid greasy food or fatty foods. Um, Remedies for that can be ginger. Ginger is a great way to reduce the nausea. Adding it into smoothies, putting it into your seasonings. Having ginger tea can also help. But really, the most important thing, if you're not only nausea but vomiting, you wanted to replenish those electrolytes. So making sure you're staying hydrated, avoiding those greasy foods. Also, doing smaller meals can help instead of larger meals. That can also help. So smaller portions, avoiding the greasy food, maybe even avoiding those fattier foods like red meats. That can help.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that when I had a bigger meal, all of a sudden that wave would come. Also, a grilled cheese a day was not helping the cause either. So,
Yeah.
ginger, definitely staying away from those greasy foods. Replenishment is really important. I think hydration, and we'll get to that a little bit later on throughout the course of pregnancy and into postpartum. Breastfeeding life, hydration is like that cornerstone.
Yeah.
So very, very important, but also hard to do sometimes. So moving into the postpartum phase, obviously you feel a little bit better second trimester. We only need about 300 calories, right? I think
Yep.
that's like an
Yep.
important thing to say. It's like we always talk about eating for two, and an additional
Hmm.
300 calories to whatever you're consuming now is really all we need to support our growing
Exactly.
our growing babies. But looking to postpartum life, because I do think that's the biggest shock for women, especially the first time around. What can we
Hmm.
do food prep wise to kind of prepare for that fourth trimester?
Yeah. One, don't be too hard on yourself. Grab whatever you can. Having just those grab to, I of course have a fruit in my my desk, but having those fruits on hand, finding things that are higher in calories, so you don't have enough time to eat. So adding oils on things, adding cheese on your foods. Nuts and seeds are really high in calories and high in nutrients as well. So those are some good things to have on hand. As far as prepping your food, even before the baby comes, you can just do a big prep day and put stuff in the freezer. Some of my go-tos to put in the freezer is lasagna. You still can put that in the freezer. 2-3 months later, you don't feel like cooking, you can put that in the oven. Another one of my go-tos is enchiladas. You can put that in the freezer.
Mhm.
Enchiladas, chilies, lasagna. So anything that you could cook and freeze it for 2 or 3 months, and then when you don't feel like cooking, you always have something on hand that you can just put in the oven and not have to stand at the stove and actually cook.
Yeah, and I love that. And I feel like meals like that are so easy that you can throw them together, but you can also fill them with like good fiber filled veggies. They don't have to be
Mm-hmm.
so some people after postpartum meat just doesn't sound great, but you can kind of make
No.
the very veggie forward as well.
Yeah.
And those are great resources. I think too for like lactation support, like lactation balls or smoothie bags, things like that
Mm-hmm.
really came in handy because I think I had a very alert newborn who didn't let me do anything.
Yeah.
And kind of having those grab and go things. I think I want to do a better job of that though this time around because I was
Okay.
alone a lot and I didn't eat. There was like no time. And then what
Yeah.
does that lead to? It makes you can't work out. And like it's a spiral effect. So that preparation
Mm-hmm.
leading up to postpartum is very important.
Yeah.
And then getting into our last question, just eating with a newborn. What should that look like? Obviously, preparation is so key, but like what should we really focus on in those early days when you're surviving and you're taking care of new life?
Yeah. So if you when baby's eating, maybe that's the only time that you have time to eat. So find the time that works best for you to eat. If it's when baby's sleeping, you can eat, but find when it works best for your schedule. When it comes to nutrients, you definitely want to focus on protein. Um, and like you said, having enough calories, like the same thing in the second trimester, 300 calories. That's about as much calories you want to have after you're having the baby, if you especially if you're breastfeeding. So you definitely want to make sure you have enough nutrients so you have enough breast milk supply. But protein is great to have um, when you're thinking about nutrition as well. Of course, fiber. But I think that the most important thing is eating enough. If you're not eating enough, that's going to bring down the supply. So making sure you eat something when you can.
No, and I think that's great because I think a lot of us, and we'll talk about this a little further when we chat with Erin, we forget about ourselves, right? So yeah, it's
Hmm.
like it's really eating when for me too. It was like when I was feeding, it was like that's when I was scarfing, or I had my partner make me something because there really weren't
Yeah.
enough time. So these are just like really easy, like great tips. I think just really to start to get the wheels turning, because we're
Yeah.
going to focus a little bit deeper dive into the fitness here, but I think just get your wheels turning on in terms of focusing on like getting yourself back to a good place after you have the baby in that fourth trimester, and being as prepared as possible going into that will only help you in the
Yeah.
end. Carly, before we sign off together, is there anything, you worked in the pre-postnatal space, is there any other advice you would give that you're off of top of mind and working with the women that you worked with?
I'm sure all the mamas know the most important things like when you're before pregnancy, first trimester, folic acid. So having good prenatal vitamin, even continue taking that after the baby's there. And vitamin D is also important too. So I would just keep those nutrients in mind: vitamin D, prenatal vitamins, even your micronutrients. I know I talk about like the macronutrients like protein, but like choline, zinc, your iron, you really want to make sure you have enough of, and make sure you're listening to your body, because if you're craving something, that's probably telling you, your body's telling you that you need some nutrients.
Mhm.
So making sure you're just staying in tune with your body.
Yeah, and there's actually quite a few recipes online. If you Google micronutrient smoothie, even though eating those whole foods are like the best bet for fiber and all of those things, there are a lot of them out
Hmm.
there, just like they are lactation smoothies. So maybe those are
Yeah.
two smoothie recipes you kind of have in your repertoire for pre and
Yeah.
post. Well, I know you have a client to get to, so I just want to say thank you. And if you want to follow Carly and get some great tips on mindful eating, you can find her at the Mindful Eating Dietitian.
Thank you, Taylor.
You're welcome. And we'll be in touch on all things ladder here soon.
Yeah.
So Erin, are you there? We're gonna get Erin. So hi, welcome.
Yeah, hey.
Yes, she is. We're gonna add you here. So this is Erin. Erin is a birthing and postpartum doula and lactation expert as well. She is mama to a very handsome boy that is
Yeah, he's doing puzzles right now.
so we are knee deep in mama life. So we're gonna talk to Erin really just about things postpartum. And I think these are the things that you wish your best friend told you about, but the things that they try to share with you. So in thinking about terms of like postpartum prep, What are some things, obviously, that we can do to prepare, no matter how you birth, no matter what the situation is? There's going to be bleeding, there's going to be engorgement, there's going to be all of those beautiful things. How can we prepare ourselves for that without feeling the scaries or allowing it to lead to some of those postpartum anxiety feelings?
Yeah, so I think a big thing is being prepared ahead of time and just kind of knowing what to expect, just like we did in pregnancy. Like all these books and all the classes and talking to your friends about what to expect in pregnancy and birth. And then you have the baby, and like 20 minutes later, everyone has forgotten about you, and it's just about the baby. And so normalizing what all of these shifts are, because it happens to everybody. So no matter if you have a vaginal cesarean birth, you'll have bleeding. You get that really fun fundal massage. It's not fun at all. And then whether you breastfeed or not, your milk will come in, you will get engorged. And so understanding like how to alleviate those discomforts and just kind of being mentally prepared for that. There's also this crazy hormonal shift that happens that throughout pregnancy, all the hormones are growing, building. And then once the placenta leaves your body, it suddenly drops down. And that causes this wild emotional roller coaster. I was telling somebody the other day that, for me, like the first couple of weeks postpartum, like every time I got in the shower, it was just like ugly crying.
Yep, same.
And it's just what happens. And then my mom would be like, "Are you having postpartum hormones?" And I was like, "Don't tell me that." But I just think that there's so much about like normalizing and not feeling shame or stigma that if you don't love every second of having a new baby, and it's a major life shift. That it's a physical one. Yes, you may have wanted this, but it is a major life shift and a huge sense of identity shift. And so just preparing for that and talking to your partner, if you have one, about what to expect, how to be supported. You're probably not going to know what exactly you need, but kind of having like a few things that you can go to. Like you're going to need to eat. You're going to need water. You're going to need some alone time. You're going to need some physical support and care. And your care provider probably isn't going to give you much.
Yeah, and that's such an important topic because at 6 weeks, the healthcare provider basically hands you birth control and says, go back to your regular life. So being prepared for that, like what does life at that 6-week point look like for you? And it's so individual to that person. We talked about before, it's not diving right back into your soul cycle class, or it's not working with me and going back as hard as we can and lifting as heavy as we were. How do you get back into that space? And there's a big rebuilding that does occur. So who are some specialists that you can reach out to? I myself had a doula to coach me through my birth. It was amazing to have that support. But what are some other services that leading up to birth we can look into so that 4th trimester goes a little bit more smooth?
I always recommend to everybody to get the contact numbers to 2 lactation support people. And just like if you are interviewing your care provider or a doula, like there's a lactation support person for everybody. And so you may want to breastfeed, you may not. And there's still somebody who can work with you on that. Because like I said, like whether you want to breastfeed a day in your life or not, like your milk is still going to come in and you need to know how to manage that. And even as a lactation support person, I had trouble nursing in the first few days and needed outside help. And so it's not about that you're just not good enough. It's just getting that outside set of eyes on you, or like those little micro adjustments and tips. So I always recommend like at least 2 support people, like lactation support people, because if you call one and they're not available, then you don't want to be like, oh no, now what do I do? If you would like a postpartum doula, I think that's a really lovely option because postpartum doulas are there to support the family and not just the baby. I am a huge fan of pelvic floor PT. That everybody who has given birth, has been pregnant, should see a pelvic floor PT. And you can do that prenatally.
Yes.
I think every human being should see it, but
yes. And actually, my my doctor was that she had a pelvic support person in her practice, actually, which was so wonderful because we were seeing before, and then I was able to work after, and I found someone out in California as well. But that's not a service that is offered, and that actually is a luxury. But also, if you want to have a second and third pregnancy, you need to rebuild, and it takes up to a year to really rebuild, and even then a little bit longer. But if you have the tools, it's such a powerful support to help rebuild you internally. Especially, any type of birth is traumatic on the pelvic floor, on the TVA, on everything. But then you had an episiotomy or a C-section, you need that additional support. So PT.
Yeah, and they can help with like scar care. I'd say the majority of people giving birth have some degree of tearing of their perineum, and so that is pelvic floor damage.
Yep.
And so having somebody to help support that. Most OBs stitch you up, tell you just be careful, and leave it at that, and then you don't see them for 6 weeks, and you're like, is everything good?
Yeah.
And not all of them will do an internal exam. Some will. They're not often trained to recognize pelvic floor dysfunction. And so I'm a huge fan of that. And then totally not that, I'm also a big fan of having support for your relationship. Because we were talking about this earlier, that's going to go through a big shift. No matter how prepared you are, it's going to go through a big shift. And setting up expectations prenatally and understanding, especially like that 6 weeks is like such a delicate time. I don't think it's like 6 weeks on the dot. Like it's varied for everybody. And then I don't know who came up with 6 weeks. It takes about that long for your uterus to shrink back down. So, but it's a big emotional time for everybody, and it's a huge shift. It's a shift in identities for the relationship in both people. You're sleep deprived, and there is a reason sleep deprivation is a very effective form of torture.
Yes.
It will make you crazy.
And it's like the thing is, and these conversations, what we want to do, you were speaking about, is we wanted to normalize them because a lot of us go into what we see on Instagram and the idealized perfection of how we're supposed to feel when the baby comes out, and the nurseries, and the perfect DACA top. But what we don't see and what we don't talk about, and what our parents' generation really can't set us up for because they did things so differently, there's a shift happening now, going backwards to our ability to take control over our birthing processes, and having a doula help us, and what that looks like. And if we're prepared and we have these conversations with our partners or our family members or our support system before they actually, the birth actually takes place, it can really just help support you, because we don't have tribes anymore. And we need them, and they're so important. I know we, had our babies pretty early on, and the mama tribe is like, we need them, so I think this is fantastic. I think, prepping, having your arsenal of health professionals to help you as you move into the birthing and postpartum phase, lactation consultant, there are so many resources now, care on demand kind of things that you can do from the comfort of your own home. And then just getting to know for yourself and having those tough conversations with your partner, baby proofing your relationship. I love that.
Yeah.
So, Erin, thank you so much. Where can everyone follow you? You have such amazing motherhood content. I know you got your hands full. Where can we find you?
I know. On Instagram, I'm at Erin_Doulight, DOULIGHT. And awesome. I keep it super real.
Yeah, clearly we love it. And we have to normalize these things. So thank you so much for sharing with our team. You are the best, and we will
thank you.
See you very soon. So moving on to the exercise portion. I know a lot of you guys had questions, and there's quite a few people that I will share this video with about prenatal and postnatal exercise. So My goal here on Ladder and on the app is really to provide a resource for people not only to have an exercise program that you can progress, but also have a space for moms to work out safely and effectively and offer the guidance to feel supported yet empowered. I think, especially in terms of postnatal fitness, there's the stigma against working out. But the benefits for the mom and the baby are really endless. And there's so much research to say that exercising during pregnancy, everyone should do it. So I just want to start with those no cost things that you can do as a mom who's preparing for labor and delivery, and also as you move through the postpartum phase. And then we'll finish up here today with a little movement on connecting our core belly breath to all of the primal movements and how you can utilize those within the app and within your workouts to move safely and effectively. And Katie, we're going to answer those questions for you about how we can jump and twist and do all those things. So starting with the benefits of exercise. What happens when you exercise? Increased nutrient waste exchange. The placenta starts to work 15% better. So more oxygen to the baby, more release of that waste out of your body. Fitness is a way to work on your labor and delivery training. I practice hypnobirthing. I went to a hypnobirthing course and hypnobirthed my baby out. And really, what is that? Relaxation and breath work. If you exercise during pregnancy, it can lead to lower fetal complications, decreased gestational diabetes risk, decreased BMI in your baby, so decreased risk for obesity in your babies, and so many other things. And then, of course, shorter labors and help with actual delivering that baby and working with your body and a connectedness to your body. So prenatal focus and postnatal focus, what are some things that you should focus on? And obviously, as we work through the app together, it's 4 basic things, 4 free things that we can do: stress management, breathing, exercise, nutrition. 4 basics that will help prepare you for labor, for delivery, and in those postpartum weeks, which are very difficult. But if you have a solid foundation and you continue to move throughout your pregnancy, you can just strengthen yourself towards the end. And then in postpartum life, what is getting back and easing back into exercise look like? That's going to be different for every person. How much did you work out while you were pregnant? What were your habits before, and how can it help you after? So after you have your baby, there's a lot of things that float around, a lot of changes. Working out and exercise, I know for me, definitely helped to improve my self-esteem. It decreases and can decrease your risk for postpartum depression and anxiety. It definitely helped with my postpartum anxiety. I talk about that very openly and freely. Pre-pregnancy weight is kind of that aftermath that you want to really think about, but it obviously helps get back to a place that you're comfortable with. But posture, alignment, core connection, strength in picking up your baby, especially during infant life, and it happens very, very quickly. Exercise can help you feel more in control and obviously decrease your stress level. So where do we start? If we're let's say fast forward, the people that are here, some of you guys are still in that postpartum phase where you're experiencing ab separation. Some of us are getting ready to birth our first baby, which is so exciting. And the conversation prior to was really just meant to help empower you to take control over what your experience can be. And preparing for that it's exciting, it's nerve-wracking, but let's continue to stay connected on it. And if you need any support, let me help. So phase 1 and step 1 is really your diaphragm and activating your what we call the core breathing belly pump. So what does that consist of? It is your core area. Okay, so it's your diaphragm, your transverse abdominis, it's the inner and outer, and also your pelvic floor. So stage 1 is just accessing that, and we're going to do that today. What is it? How can we access it? Step 2 is that immediate phase, that connection phase after you birth your baby, or it's that phase where you can apply it maybe in your training, but apply it to the basic moves. Okay, basic exercise: squat, lunge, push, pull. And then finally, the third phase of rehab and Third phase of core connection is really connecting it to any movement that you do, whether it's picking up your baby out of the crib or performing a burpee. So it's really connecting to all those movements. So, but step number one starts with your diaphragm. So if you want to just take a second and just breathe, I want you to figure out, where do you breathe from? You can even just like close your eyes for a second. You can place one hand right below your chest and then one hand on your lower belly and just start to breathe. Inhale and exhale as deep as you can. And you'll find out pretty quickly if you're a chest breather and your chest lifts, or if you're really connecting to that diaphragm, opening up and expanding your lungs, or are you a diaphragmatic breather? So you hear the terms, especially in pre-postnatal fitness, diaphragmatic breath and core breathing. And there is a difference. That diaphragmatic breath, the diaphragm breathing, that's breathing. That's your breath. That's where you want to breathe in. We want to focus on taking the breath from here down to our diaphragm and expanding. Now, what we want to move towards is that core breathing belly pump, which activates the TVA, the transverse abdominis, all the inner working obliques, all of those muscles, and your pelvic floor. So breath is really going to be the cornerstone from here on out, from pregnancy to labor and delivery to reconnection in those postpartum weeks. So what does breath do? And what is our TVA? What does our core breathing do? It helps with posture, helps with stabilization, balance, and coordination and exercise. So really, when we're moving, it doesn't matter if we're doing a squat, doesn't matter if we're doing a lunge, a burpee, a jump squat, whatever it is, core connection should be a number one. So when we're doing belly breathing, and you can get comfortable here wherever you are in your space, even if you just want to listen and lay down or stay seated or go into a comfortable position standing, let's just talk about belly training a little bit. You can start the second you are pregnant. You should start even if you are not pregnant, or the second you deliver that baby. So what we want to focus on right now is turning on that belly pump. And I can just stand up for this for a moment, just to figure out. I'm going to stand up here just slightly so I can kind of show you. I'm going to lift up here. I have just the beginnings of a bump. I'm just getting into that second trimester. But I like to start, and it's really much easier when you're just starting out to do this in a laying position. Or a seated position if you're not comfortable laying on your back. But once again, finding that one hand on your belly, one hand on your diaphragm, one on that lower belly. Now, especially too, if you are postpartum and you still have that pesky ab separation, if you're suffering from diastasis, this core breathing is the most important thing that you can do to rehab that. Okay, so inhale. Inhale is where you want to actually expand everything. Inhale, deep belly breath. Exhale. From there, it's not sucking that belly in, but what you want to think about is on that exhale, making almost a snake sound and little lift at the top. So that lift in the pelvic floor is that access to the entire core breathing belly pump. So let's just try to do that a few times together. Inhale. Exhale. That extra little lift is what we're working towards. Inhale. That's when everything should fall. Exhale. And it might feel strange. Just continue to do that wherever you are. But that little extra sound helps to really bring in the transverse abdominis and lift into those inner abs and really access that. So there's 3 phases of that we can do. It's deep inhale. And if you want to write these down, it's deep inhales. So it's focusing on the inhale portion and the expansion portion. You do that for about a minute or 2 minutes. The next couple of minutes, we'll really just focus on what we call pistons. And it's like little exhales. And see, I have to close my eyes to do it because why? It helps connect. It helps build that mind-body connection. Then from there, it's the pelvic floor. So you access that pelvic floor, and you can do it in any position that you're in. And you think once again, inhale, exhale, lift. And my pelvic floor PT, actually, she was so wonderful because what she wanted to, which helped me a lot to access it even further, was thinking about lifting up a blueberry. So it's like you can access by doing a Kegel, but that little extra lift, that's what's going to help with that strengthening position. So you do that. Deep inhales, deep exhales, hold that lift. You hold it for about 3 seconds. You can do about a set of 10 or 15. Then you can do an extended hold where you hold for about 3 to 5 seconds, up to 10 seconds if you can. And then a little elevator lift where you do a little lift, 2, 3, and then release. And then the final is focus on the exhalation. So the exhalations, I think, are extremely powerful. Why I talk about them a lot in ladder and throughout my workouts, because they're the power. They're the powerhouse, okay? That is what can get you through those waves of pain during delivery and help you work with your body to overcome. They can help you get to that space of visualization. So again, it's holding, inhale, exhale, lift, not sucking in, lifting up, and it takes a while to get everything to start to work together. And as you lift, then you can do little exhales, okay? Piston exhales where you hold it. That belly is in. So I talk about when I give you guys that modification for sometimes our twists, those seated pelvic tucks where you can hold it. Same thing. And what I want you to think about when you do those little exhalations, those little piston exhalations, is really to connect, bring everything in, but also to lift from the bottom. So it takes practice, but especially if you're in that second, third trimester, start to do these every day and write me within the app, and I can give you a detailed explanation of what to do. I can even send you a video on a little practice of doing that. But so it's called the core breathing belly pump. Such a powerful practice. You focus on the inhales, diaphragmatic, pistons, work on the pelvic floor lifting. It should take about 15 minutes. And then you work on the exhales. And then we start to focus on the connection. So actually getting into the movements, and we got quite a few questions about this. And this is going to be our final, 10, 15 minutes together. But what happens when we have our doctors telling us, don't do this. Don't let your heart rate get over 140 BPMs. Here's the deal. So many women, so many people are walking around with their core turned off, right? We're not breathing correctly. We're sitting in a chair all day. We're not working out effectively. We're not utilizing our breath. So what is planking? What do certain exercises lead to for many, many women because they're not connected here? Bad diastasis, tougher deliveries, a lot of issues that if you are able to get control over your core, over your TVA, over your belly breath, can really transfer doing a lot of these skills, but then we modify. So it's really important to get to know how to breathe in all of these primal movements, right? Phase 2, so that then you can transfer them to any exercise that you're doing. So it's not, especially, I know we got this question, such a great question from Katie. It's not that we say never do this, never do a plank again, never do a push-up again. It's how can we connect and build the strength in our connectedness to our core and have it actively function so that it actually benefits us, as opposed to hindering us, exacerbating the ab separation, putting that extra pressure on the pelvic floor, and then we're working at a much more difficult state postpartum than we would if we really focused on the pelvic floor movement. And with that said, whatever you were doing prior to getting pregnant, continue to do in terms of the intensity of your exercise. There's CrossFit moms, there's Barry's moms. There are obviously tons of moms now on ladder, which is so fantastic to see. This generation, it's like we need to move, we need to exercise. But then now, what's most important? Stress management, breath work, exercise, nutrition. 4 non-negotiables there. So now let's connect it to the exercise. And if you want to just find an area or a space, or if you just want to watch and take notes, and we can obviously connect it to our workout tomorrow, that's great too. So when I first start to work with a client, I like to assess 4 different activation areas. That's our core, which is our core breathing, our glute activations, what happens with our glute bridges, our squats, our deadlifts, our scapular activations, our shoulders working in a row, and then also our chest in our chest press. So those are really the activations. So let me know if you want a little assessment. I'll ask you a few exercises and I can look out for those. But then most importantly, where the majority of the exercises that you will find, because this is a functional training program on mindbodyburn on ladder, where do they come from? It's squat, lunge, bend, twist, push, pull. So what do a lot of doctors say? Obviously, we want to mitigate twisting in terms of forward flexion, abs, bicycle crunches like that, because we're trying to limit our risk for diastasis. But twisting is also an extremely important part of motherhood. I feel like I twist with my toddler all the time. So how do we connect that? So we're going to go through all 6 movement patterns and how to connect that breath to finish today. So then here's your homework. I want you to get at least 1 workout in this week, especially if you just joined the app, at least 1 workout connecting that breath. Okay, connecting the TVA, connecting the core breathing, and see how it feels this week. I want you to see if it feels a little bit different than kind of what we were doing before. And a few tips as we move through those workouts. I just have a little set of weights for you. As we move through the workouts, also, what comes into play here? Because every exercise, I will modify, but it's speed, okay? That is really the game changer. As I'm moving into this second trimester personally, going to the classes that I'm going to, how am I modifying already? I'm dropping my knees in push-ups. I'm not holding a plank for 30 seconds. Sometimes I will go to an elevated surface for my mountain climbers or hop up to high knees. It's slow, it's controlled, and it's connected, and we're moving from our core. Okay, so that breath work. So starting very quickly, our squat. Okay, so we can start with our squat. I'm going to drop it down just a little bit here. So starting with that squat, what does it look like? Okay, so I'm going to do an overhead squat. I start with that deep inhale, expanding my belly. Okay, exhale, I'm going to drop it down. So inhaling at the bottom, okay, arms overhead or wherever we squat. Sometimes it's weighted, it's not. Feet is back. I inhale at the bottom. I engage. I start my exhale. Stand and squeeze. That's the most important thing, is starting. Inhale, drop. Belly falls. Start it. It's like a millisecond beforehand. Stand and squeeze. Starting that exhale, starting that connection, especially if we start to add weights in those different squats that we do, right? We have inhale. If I just let it go, what's going to happen? I'm going to start to tilt. I'm going to start to feel that back pain. So once again, inhale, drop. Exhale, pelvic floor lift. And I suggest starting to do these exercises quite a few times without any weight, without anything, and just close those eyes, get to know your body. Inhale, drop. Exhale, lift. Slow and controlled. Now lunge, same basic thing, forward lunge, reverse lunge. Inhale, drop, okay? Activating the glutes, okay? If you're feeling it in other areas like your quads, usually it feels a little bit off. You want to activate your glutes, making sure your hips aren't open. Inhale at the bottom. Exhale. It's harder to activate my pelvic floor here. So you might even want to hold it a little bit and press back through. Trying it on both sides. Inhale. Exhale. So activation, inhale, exhale. Once again, it takes time to build. Our bend. So when we go to do a deadlift, same type of thing. I think in the voiceovers, I say it constantly. It feels so constant. So gaze is toward the ground. This should be activate your glutes. Back is active as well. Inhale, drop. Exhale. Inhale. That one I felt myself, I was just kind of sucking in. So you have to feel it. It doesn't matter how long, eventually you want it to just become automatic. but it's something we have to think about. And then we add that variety, right? Sometimes we do a one-legged deadlift here. Same thing. Let it go. Inhale, expand. Activate first. Exhale. So that's going to be really hard if you're just mindlessly working here, right? So what's happening? Pulling from my back, no core engagement. I'm getting tired, so that chest breathing starts to happen. So start to analyze as you move throughout these workouts. Where are you breathing from? Why are you going so fast? Okay, there's a reason I don't give rep goals that first week. It's because I want you to get to know your body a little bit better. So now on to twisting. We do add wood choppers, okay? So twisting with your body. Doing a wood chopper, inhale, is very consistent with taking your baby out of a crib. If you don't move with your entire body, that's when the damage can be done. So it's really, if I'm thinking about, good morning, honey, go, there's some damage that can happen versus good morning, sweetheart, kiss, 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 moving all together. So it's really the addition of the core breathing is a connectedness that your body is moving in fluidity with each other. And lastly, I want to get to the push aspect so we can finish up here. And if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat. But push-ups become very important and planks become very important. And they're very effective and you can continue to do them safely as you grow, but we need to modify them. So even just a quadruped position, I'm going to pull you guys a little bit closer here. So especially as you get to immediate postpartum, and if you do experience any ab separation, definitely start very gently. We're not going to go right into a push-up, okay? But you can do variations like I offer in the app. So you have bird dogs connected. Inhale, belly falls. Start to activate the exhale. Lift that pelvic floor. Gaze toward the belly button. Very different from just going into it like this. Usually the belly would just hang. Lots of extra pressure, coning, things like that. Then another variation before we get into that push-up would be the bird dog. This is also great for core. When we're not doing sit-ups in the app, we do it quite a bit. Inhale as you lift. Exhale as you connect. Thinking about drawing baby, belly in, TVA together. Third progression from here would be quadruped knee lifts, okay? So inhale, belly falls. Exhale. Go 3, 2, 1. Back down. Inhale. Up 3, 2, 1. And this progression will help you to, in pregnancy, to feel a little bit stronger, to connect with your body first, or postpartum for that rehab before we get right back into that push-up. Okay, so that would be a progression. Then we can get to a modified plank position from there. So that's when you drop your knees and go to that modified plank or a forearm plank, up on a bench or a chair, something like that on an elevated surface. So then, from here, you feel a little bit more connected to your body. You're not in a full compromised plank where your belly just hangs and it leads to that diastasis. So you can be a little bit stronger here. Now that push-up, okay, our final move here. Inhale, belly falls. Start that exhale and come up. Inhale and exhale. So as you move through those exercises, like I said, it was lunge, squat, push, pull, bend, and twist. Those are those primal movements that you will find throughout every single workout on the app. And your phases start with rebuilding, connecting to all the movements. Okay, so getting to know as we work through the app this week, you guys, if you're just joining us, you have a week free. I want you to utilize what we're working on here, what we just talked about, what we did. Send me video and let's translate our breathing to our work. I really just wanted to provide some opportunity because I know there's so many awesome moms in the group and moms trialing. And I want us all, because there aren't a ton of resources for us leading into such an incredibly life-changing experience. It doesn't matter if it's your first, your second, or your fifth kid. Every pregnancy is different. And I just want this program and this team to be a resource for you to be able to get back to you. And I know as a mom myself in 2020, it's not the easiest thing to do, but I just want you to remember those 4 non-negotiables this week that we're going to work on: breathing, stress management, nutrition, and exercise. And I hope that we can continue to just work together on all of these things, and make sure you send me a message in the app so we can work a little bit more one-to-one. And I will leave the chat open for a few minutes. And if you guys have any questions, and if not, I will stop the recording shortly and get this up so that whoever wasn't able to join us today can have access to this. And if you have questions about anyone, about Erin, about anyone who joined us, Carly, feel free to ask. But no one has any questions. You guys, thank you so much. Once again, get a workout in. Hit me up in the one-to-one. Send me those videos. I would love to see how those cores are working and give you a little more advice on how we can connect them to every single workout in the app. So thank you guys for joining, and we will see you soon.